In the early 90s, rivalries were as hot of a topic as they are today. Holyfield versus Tyson, Chicago Bulls versus the New York Knicks, the WWF versus WCW. But of all the rivalries that happened during this decade, one stood above the rest in the video gaming industry: Nintendo's Mario versus Sega's Sonic. With Sega's continued success in the console market, they looked to the future with what CD technology could bring with the inevitable release of the Sega Saturn. Still needing time to develop a Sonic game to launch with the console, they set to begin producing other games in the mainline series, with one being about Sonic's former arch-nemesis in the form of Knuckles the Echidna. On this edition of the Uncommon Valley, we look at the behind-the-scenes history of the game that started as a Sonic title turned Knuckles project, as we take a closer look at Knuckles Chaotix. With the Genesis faring well against the NES, Nintendo looked towards its next powerhouse release in the form of the Super Nintendo, and would become a big hit amongst gamers. This would cause Sega to rethink its strategy to stay one step ahead of the curve in the console market, and would release the Sega CD 1 year later on December 12, 1991. Boasting better sound and gameplay experiences while still using older hardware via connectivity through the side port of the Sega Genesis. CD technology be considered as the new norm, both Nintendo and Sega would begin work on their respective consoles, with Nintendo at one point going with Sony, then over to Philips, but Sega would also at one point work with Sony before deciding on doing it themselves. Sega's then CEO, Hayao Nakayama, during a conference call just a day before that year's Winter CES event, wanted to begin plans on the brand new system. Originally, the plan was to make it a brand new cartridge-based console that would offer more colors for games. Focus moved over to a CD platform as it was becoming far more cheaper to develop for. Well, it seemed as though the majority were willing to go to the CD route, Nakayama didn't budge on the cartridge console idea, and ordered both Sega of America and Sega of Japan to begin work on both versions, with a release date during the holiday season of 1994. With the decision being made, the idea of a brand new Sonic game was already in the planning stages, and would begin work on both almost immediately by two other groups: Sonic Mars by Sega Technical Institute, who worked on some of the previous sequels along with the spin-off title Sonic Pinball, and the aptly named Sonic Crackers by none other than Sonic of Japan. While Sonic Crackers was originally slated for the Sega Saturn, Sonic Mars was originally supposed to be a launch title for the Sega 32X. But because of time constraints, it was decided that Sonic Crackers would remain on the 32X as an exclusive title, and would move Sonic Mars' development over to the Sega Saturn, due in part to the game being far too powerful to develop for the 32X hardware. This way, it would allow both systems to have their own Sonic titles, while not leaving the other one abandoned for its fans. So with everything set, both began to get work on both games, and the development for both would eventually see their fair share of rocky results. When work began on Sonic Crackers, they wanted to consider that this was going to be the fourth game in the Sonic the Hedgehog series, but wanted to give it an update to make it feel more unique and different instead of the usual power-ups that were in the previous games. The basic build for the engine was developed and presented on April 1st of 1994. Though it was debated very early on that it was intended as an April Fool's joke, but later when the ROM was dumped, it was confirmed that it was a legit build before they changed it over to the Knuckles Chaotix project. One journalist, Ken Howritz, stated that Sonic Crackers was used mainly in a way to show the potential of a new mechanic and to offer the idea to the management team in hopes of getting it greenlit. While the idea was interesting on paper, they decided to go with a different direction for the characters. Certain ideas that were in the original Sonic Crackers prototype would be used for Sonic 3D Blast, while the rest would be used for the concept for the game's development. And then later in December of that year, it was decided that both Sonic and Tails would no longer be in the final version of the game, and would instead be replaced with Sonic's then arch-enemy at the time, Knuckles the Echidna, who made their debut in Sonic 3 that same year, and thus the name of the game would see a change in the form of Knuckles Ringstar, and would eventually be renamed over to Knuckles Chaotix in the final version of the build. It would feature a cast of characters that a part of the group were known as the Chaotix, and consists of Mighty the Armadillo, Vector the Crocodile, Espio the Chameleon, and Charmy the Bee. It was an idea made by the team to use these characters instead, and that some had originally been used in previous projects. For Mighty, they already made their debut for Sega's previously released game Sega Sonic the Hedgehog, and they decided to repurpose other assets from Sonic Cracker's prototype, and would even modify Sonic's own sprites for Mighty's character design. For Vector, he was already in the original concept for Sonic the Hedgehog before being scrapped from development, and Charmy Bee had already made an appearance in the Sonic manga over in Japan. Sonic's co-creator Naoto Oshima remembers that he was responsible for bringing in both Vector and Charmy, but they did not have any further involvement in the Knuckles Chaotix project. With over an entire year since the original Sonic Cracker's prototype was developed, Knuckles Chaotix would be released in North America and Japan on April 1995, and then 2 months later over in Europe. Sega was hoping that it would entice people into getting the 32X just for the chance to play this game. What they didn't know is that it would do the complete opposite, but in the end backfire on Sega's part. Right around the time of the game's release, various publications began producing their review scores, ranging anywhere from being a fresh new take that is worth the purchase of the 32X, to being described as underwhelming and an overall very poor experience. Many magazines described it as being the best game on the system, but with the mix of review scores that didn't help matters. The big one being that the bungee cord mechanic felt very unnecessary to those that were more used to the standard Sonic formula. It also didn't help that Sonic and Tails were nowhere to be seen aside from a special end screen after obtaining all Chaos Rings. This on top of the fact that it got lost in the shuffle of the 32X not gaining any big sales numbers, and had become one of the worst selling Sega consoles ever released. It also didn't help matters that majority of the attention was being diverted over to the Sega Saturn, and that Knuckles Chaotix would be all forgotten about not long after. By 1997, all Sega Genesis hardware and accessories would be discontinued to shift more focus over to the Sega Saturn that was struggling to make any impact on the market. While it did attempt to make an interesting departure for the series, it would be nothing more than a huge mess for developers at the end. To best describe why the process as a whole was nothing more than a headache for Sega, former Sega of America CEO Tom Kalinske summarized it as, "The original game was long and it was taking too long to get done. So decision was made to cut it into parts and introduce it quickly on 32X. That was a simple decision because there were too many needs to have more products on the 32X. It wasn't going to be ready on Saturn. It was too big, it was taking too long, it was over budgeted, it was behind schedule." Check out the other videos on our channel today for more obscure video gaming history, and thank you for watching The Uncommon Valley as we look to the past into the present.